All right, just another review, multiplying and dividing integers. The thing that you see up here is like a tic-tac-toe board, and it's almost a cheat sheet to follow these particular rules. And just like tic-tac-toe, you need three going across. As long as you use the same row or same column or the diagonal, you can always use this only for multiplying and dividing with integers. And we know that integers are numbers that are positive and negative whole numbers. If I were to say that I have a positive times, and I'm going across the top row, times a negative, it will give you a negative answer. And I'm going to put answer. I can go from bottom to top. I have a negative times another negative. Well, if I follow the path, it will give me a positive answer. If I were to do division as well, so I can put and let's use the second row going across, a negative divided by a positive, it will give me a negative answer. And let's go one going diagonal. I have a positive divided by another positive, it will give me a positive. And so you can go any combination, as long as you stay within the same row or column or diagonal, this will always work. Here's a couple of examples. Let's say I have a 24 being divided by, parentheses, negative 8. Anytime you have a number that does not have a positive or a negative symbol attached to it, it is assumed that it is a positive. So now I can write this as a positive divided by a negative, and I go back up here and I see a positive divided by a negative must give me a negative. So with that in mind, I can do this as 24 divided by negative 8 will give me, well, 24 divided by 8 is 3. Well, what kind of 3 is it? It has to be a negative. So therefore, it's a negative. Let's say we have another example and we'll do multiplication. So this is just a regular division. Let's say I have 7 as a negative, I'm going to protect it, times a negative 5, parentheses. All right. Let's make sure that we document what we have. I have a negative times another negative. And if I look up here, where can I have? I can go from bottom to top in the first column or the last row. I have a negative times a negative must give me a positive. So now I can confidently say that this negative 7 times a negative 5 will give me a positive answer. Now, what is 7 times 5? And we know that to be 35. So therefore, it is a positive 35. 5. If you are given multiple negatives and positives, I'm going to give you a hint. Here's my hint. Ready? Count the number of negative symbols if it is an even quantity of negatives, then my answer must be even. Conversely, if it is an odd quantity of negatives, then you know that it has to be negative as my final answer. I'm going to swing around and give you an example. Let's say I have, and I'm going to keep the number small for you, negative 2 parentheses times negative 3 parentheses times negative 1 parentheses times, let's say, 2. Following this same tic-tac-toe box rules, I have a negative times negative. Well, what does negative times negative? Well, this must give me a positive. And then I'm going to do the same thing for these two. I have a negative times a positive. This must give me, again, negative times a positive gives me a negative. And then, now I have this as my positive, this as my negative. Negative times a positive must give me, again, negative times, oh, I wrote that incorrectly, I'm sorry. I'm going to put positive first, because that's what my first two terms. Positive times a negative must give me what? Positive times a negative must give me a negative. So my final answer must be, I'm going to put final answer must equal to a negative. Well, let's do this again and just solve it. 2 times 3 times 1 times 2. And because I already know that it's going to be a negative, I'm just using the coefficient, but I could still do this. Well, PEMDAS rule, 2 times 3 is 6. It's a positive, negative times a negative. And then I copy, and then a positive times a negative gives me a negative 6, 6 times 1, negative 6, times the 2, which is positive, that's 12. Negative times a positive gives me, and it matches what we said your answer has to be, which was going to be a negative.